to city-owned land permit, Red Lodge Farmers Market. This is up for discussion, and then later on it's up for a vote. Kelly, would you like to tell us about this?
Sure, yeah. James and I received this permit for the farmers market to once again occupy the space at Lions Park for the summer. And we went through everything and think it looks great. And we're also in favor of them doing in-kind services that they listed on the application in lieu of their $100 per day fee for the permit. They would like to do some pruning of city trees along Broadway, clean out the flower areas near the roundabout on the north end of town, and they'll be checking on the public bathrooms during each time that there's a farmer's market each week on Fridays. So.
Discussion. Yes, Tom.
I think I'm totally in favor of it. I think it's a great thing for the town, for the positive thing and all this stuff.
Dave.
We did modify the form, the ordinance and resolution last year to allow us to basically accept in-kind services for the per diem. However, we did not address that in-kind services for the deposit. And I've reached back to a couple of past council members to check my memory against their memories as well. And while I don't recall the discussion at the time, my thinking is that that's probably wise in that we don't need to waive the deposit. I think it's beneficial to help keep those that do this responsible. Again, they're going to get their deposit back, so this isn't a cost to them. It's just putting a security deposit in place. And I didn't see on here that we had received a security deposit. I'm looking for James. I didn't see that we have received. I'm absolutely in favor of waiving the actual costs associated with it, but I do think in keeping with precedence that it would be wise of us to continue to accept a down payment and hold that down payment and return it at the end of the season when there has not been sprinkler damage or other types of damage.
Well, I remember the conversation, and because they do such a fine job, they do exactly what they say they will do and then some. And I think that what they contribute is far away and above the down payment that would ever be. And I think that I remember the conversation, and we did agree that it would be a good idea and better for the city if we waived it for them to do the maintenance.
Right,
Now,
I recall that, and that was for the daily use fee, not necessarily for the in case something is damaged fee. And just as a heads up, I did reach out and speak with Sammy over the weekend as I was reviewing this packet, and kind of gave them a heads up that was my recollection and expectation that we probably would still be doing that. And my input would be that if we're not going to do that, then we need to revisit the paperwork again and modify it to say that we'll waive it for the deposit. But I personally would not be in favor of waiving the deposit. I don't think there's a cost. I don't think there's a real cost to that, because basically they get their money back. And that just protects the city. And I think we have a responsibility to protect the city and its uses.
Teresa.
Well, I know that the work that they do in kind is valuable to the city, and this is a service to our community. This is not, nobody's making lots of money there. They're coming to sell their goods. It's a healthy atmosphere for the community. It does help the economy of local, ag and producers. I would look to see if we could waive the deposit, because there are nonprofits involved as well. I mean, it's truly a service to the community more than, thinking about it as just a business.
what they do for us is far and away above the security deposit. And they do it on a regular basis, and they do it as good or better than if we hired a service to prune the trees and take care of the flowers. And I recall us discussing it at some length and determining that that was the right way to go with this event. Because it was good for the city.
This is a group of honorable, well-meaning people, and I think any effort to collect any type of money from them just sets a bad tone between the two parties.
Do we, just a question, do we know what's been done in the past? In the past, I mean, last year, nobody did farmer's market last year due to COVID. In previous years, have we charged them the deposit?
Usually not.
So part of what we're going to, so remember that part of what we're going with this form, and the reason we modified this form was, and I apologize that the term is skipping my mind right now. One of the folks who's read the book more recently, there's a class of decisions that we as council make called,
It's called it quasi something.
quasi-judicial, thank you. Quasi-judicial, which is where we are applying ourselves and making a decision. One of the concerns with quasi-judicial, and actually, interestingly enough, it's one of the things that's not covered by the city insurance policy is quasi-judicial decisions. So what that means to me is that we have to be able to be very, very consistent, and we have to be able to document why we deviated from what's been done in the past. So because of that, that's where this origination of this ability to waive fees were. We had to be able to say, well, how come you gave it to them and you didn't give it to me? And so how we accomplished that task was saying that it could be waived upon approval of the council. So the council can come in and say, yes, these are services. Yes, they do wonderful things. Yes, this is beneficial. But then the conversation at the time was, well, this is beneficial. This is beneficial. This is beneficial. And so they came to, well, what we're going to do is we're going to go, rather than doing that, we will go in-kind services and we can approve that. And that gives us an anchor to protect ourselves on. We're giving it to you because you're doing in-kind services. If somebody else comes and wants to do in-kind services, we may approve, we may not approve, but we want to be consistent in how we apply that. In the past, so if we go back prior to last year, part of what happened is the farmer's market was just, they had an MOU, a memorandum, MOA, a memorandum agreement. And then James had indicated he wanted to get away from that. And the one thing that was stopping them from going this approach was the cost. And that's part of why we modified this. But again, that discussion didn't include the deposit. So I'm inclined, I agree 1,000% that these guys are there. And if we put this forth tonight without requiring a deposit, I will make it very clear that I'm not voting against the event, but I think we, for the sake of consistency, should have a deposit until such time as we put something on the books that leaves a mechanism in place to not have a deposit. Because there's no saying that if one of their vendors comes in and puts a sprinkler in or a stake, I mean, they're supposed to use weights and they have all sorts of things to protect it, as do all of the events. You know, the art guild comes into town. I could argue that that's a very valuable and beneficial thing to this town in all sorts of ways. Does that mean we're not going to have a deposit from them? I think there's wisdom in having a deposit for the same reason you get a deposit on a rental unit or anything else. It just says, hey, just a reminder, when this is all done, we want it back in the condition you got it in. And if it is, here's your deposit.
Teresa, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I can understand there's a concern about setting precedents, but we're in the midst of looking at and trying to revise the application for use of city-owned land as well, right? We're looking into that. So when do you flip that switch, right? So I think that we could craft, it doesn't mean it can't be done, even though it was done last year to suit, another farmer's market situation. I think that we could move ahead and carefully craft the wording in there to set the criteria.
I don't think there's another event that a part of their agreement is that they will do maintenance on city property. And that's the precedent that makes this different. Because other events, for instance, the 4th of July parade, if I did damage to the parking lot, I would be responsible for repairing it. But the farmer's market agrees to do the maintenance They trim those trees, they do a superb job. They're farmers and ranchers after all. They know how to do things like that. And, they do a superb job. They leave it in better shape than when they got there. And that's why we made the decision before to allow them to continue to, do the maintenance on the park in lieu of the payment. And I'm still in favor of it.
It's not like somebody's using the park for a family reunion.
Different thing
It's
entirely.
completely different. It's clearly a community service.
Tom?
Dave does bring up a point that needs to be addressed, but I think at this point, until we have city attorney available, I would say my recommendation is we go with this as it is. But we do address this concern in the future, because there is a precedent setting here. In this particular case, I mean, I'm totally in favor of the farmer's market, and I don't think we should make it difficult for them, but I think it's something that we should address in the future for other events.
And James will be here for the regular meeting, so he can give us a little history, and clean up on that a little bit too, so.
And I
think if this is the only point that we're really concerned about, we can carry this forward and then we can discuss it more once we bring it up under new business and James will be here to clarify.
And there's a reasonable possibility that Sammy or whoever is representing the farmer's market at meeting may show up and say, thanks for the heads up, we've looked at our books, and yes, it's not going to be an issue. And that, to me, would make it very easy for us. And I would be curious to get James' input. I'd be curious to get our city works, who would be responsible for repairing any damages. I'd be curious to get that input from our department heads when we have the discussion.
Are you all satisfied with that? We'll just carry it forward for action and go from there. Thank you. T-bid budget, for discussion. T-bid, you're here. Do you want to fill us in on it?
Last year was a very different year for T-bid. I'm Amy Ewer, for those who don't know me. I'm president of the Red Ledge Tourist Business Improvement District. This year going forward, we're going based off collections for the past year. We look forward to marketing Red Lodge and bringing people here to put heads in beds as usual, which benefits the stakeholders who collect the funds, but it also benefits the city by bringing in more tax dollars and getting people to stay in Red Lodge, shop in Red Lodge, eat in the restaurant. Did anyone have any specific questions?
Why don't you tell us what your main purpose is as T-bid?
To market Red Lodge,
Okay.
to put heads in beds, because where the funds come from, for those that don't know, the funds, we were formed by the stakeholders. The stakeholders are any hotels, vacation rentals, bed and breakfast within Red Lodge that have 3 or more occupiable units. $2 a night is collected either from the guest, or sometimes the business puts that forward for every night the unit is used, and then that is collected to market Red Lodge. We do that in a lot of different forms. Sponsorship is a big part of what we do. We sponsor events and different things from flowers to fireworks to stroll to ski touring. A lot of these events we put a lot of money towards to help keep them going and keep the atmosphere what people come to see Red Lodge for. We do advertising in the forms of print ads, digital ones. This year we've added into the budget building a photo and videography library to use for these ads. In the past, we put money towards, right before COVID, it was ill-timed. No one could have expected that, but we did budget in, and we'll be releasing our groups and meetings, the Meet Me in Red Lodge website, which details all the places that people can come and have meetings in Red Lodge to attract that off-season business. We really want to see our peak season spread so that Red Lodge isn't so dependent on the mountain or the pass We want to make it so that Red Lodge itself is a destination to come bring your groups, come stay for multiple days.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and open it up for discussion. Dave?
I have a couple of questions. So you mentioned that this is based on last year's number. And for the council members to know where this is actually a tax that they put on themselves. And so just a year ago-ish, maybe a little bit longer than that, they actually voted to change it from $1 to $2 per bed. If I look at the resort tax numbers, we are already 3 quarters into this fiscal year. We are 13% ahead of last fiscal year all by itself, and we have another quarter to go. Quarter over quarter, we are at, or for the calendar years, we're at 60, basically a 2/3 improvement. What I don't know, I'm guessing that the bed business was hit by that more hard than the rest of it, or maybe it wasn't, I don't know.
No.
Okay.
Well, and it
No.
depends, because there was a quarter, and this is not, it's not just last year's that we went off of when we built this budget. We actually took last year's, the year before, which was the first year with the $2 full increase, and the previous year to kind of project where we hopefully would see the best tax, or the increase in the TBID collection. But I would say that the hotels and vacation rentals did not see a big hit. We've actually, surprisingly, I know within my business, we saw an increase, even with AAA Red Lodge Rentals, which is a business I own and operate with my partners. We closed for 2.5 months. We did not have anyone. We canceled all our reservations,
I remember that.
gave back all the money, which was very hard at the time. But to protect Red Lodge as a whole, because we didn't know what was going on, and even with that, we saw an increase over previous years. And part of that is marketing, because we saw more of it being a drag market, which is again what we'll see again this year. So we're hoping to capture that with how we market Red Lodge.
There was a line item in there, you have wayfinding, 15,000. I know we put the wayfinding signs in last year. Can you just tell us a little bit about what additional are we looking at this year for the wayfinding?
So Sherry
Line
can
item.
speak to that more, but wayfinding, the first wayfinding was stage 1. Stage 2 will come up soon. And the reason we set those funds aside is because we do think it's important to help with, once people are here, having them find their way around. But it's a way for TBID to set aside the money to help Sherry with matching funds in the CDB and visitor center that she wouldn't have otherwise. Can you talk more about
Like
that?
what sort of signs are we expecting to see pop up?
Phase 2 includes the welcome to Red Lodge.
The big one.
Yeah, and then we couldn't afford a few others that we wanted sprinkled around, so it was complete that phase.
Thank you.
I
Teresa?
sorry. Not you, Glory. I was just wondering, because I know people wonder where they were such an improvement, and they really polished up the town, and everybody loved them. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to share what is planned for the wayfinding signs with this year's budget.
Absolutely. At this point, we're just trying to garner some funds, see where we can get to, and then we move forward with, there's already been a plan in place and some things from years past,
Yeah.
but we would reissue that and inform the public for sure.
Glory?
This is one of the few organizations that steps up and does what we cannot do, we as the city of Red Lodge cannot do, and they market for us. And that's part of the reason why our resort taxes and such have not gone down like other communities, because we have this organization that does the marketing. And they've made a huge difference. We all know that. We all know when we look around at other communities, they have suffered much more than Red Lodge has. Now, granted, Red Lodge is a welcoming place, and it has a lot to offer, and people want to come here. So it might be a little easier sell, but somebody has to make that sell regardless. And this group does that, and it doesn't cost us anything. But it certainly benefits us, all of us, everybody in the community in the long run. that's part of the reason why our resort tax collections were not as much down as many of the places that were collecting funds. And I just think that we need to approve this. It doesn't cost us anything except our support.
Teresa?
So, Mayor, I'm trying to understand, since, you know, the last resort tax approval, I know that the businesses, local businesses have given up their share of that back to the city, so that in the past, they would have, local businesses would have gotten that percent, kept that percent as a resort tax for themselves, and plus had the T-bid, right?
No,
Okay, so the T-bid,
T-bid is only the stakeholders, which are
only the
hotels,
hotels.
vacation rentals, lodging.
Okay.
And that goes,
Lodging.
and that all of the money that is collected goes right to T-bid.
Okay.
And that's all spent there. It's not like the tax that has the percentage that you keep. There's none of that.
And then, is it the chamber, or does the Destination Red Lodge come out of T-bid, or the chamber?
That's a private enterprise with myself and my husband. The chamber facilitates the T-bid financial side. I get 3% for taking in all the money and paying all the bills and that. And then we work together with the T-bid so that we don't duplicate efforts. I've got several of our magazines that we put out this year for advertising, and we co-op with those we work together to make all those happen.
Yeah, the rules are in place, and we just follow them, and it has worked extremely well.
Tom?
This is just a question, but do you have any idea what the vacancy rate is generally here? 'Cause I'm
Should we bring this back into the budget
yeah,
part of it?
yeah, because I'm just, this is to sell Red Lodge. And I'm just curious, the impression is need to sell Red Lodge that much.
So the T-bid has been doing this for nearly 10 years. And it is, I have a strong opinion that it is the reason that Red Lodge has gained so much popularity is because of the marketing that has happened over those 10 years and the things that have been put in place to make Red Lodge on the map. I know prior to me, Jen Kapp was the president, and before that was Tiny, and she was on the board, and they've worked tirelessly with Creative Design Works and the Chamber to make Red Lodge a destination. And every year we see increases of people who are wanting to come here, who know about Red Lodge. And there's still lots of people who don't know about Red Lodge. So we want to make sure that we're getting the name out there. And when it goes to marketing, the minute you stop marketing is the minute people forget about you and forget how to find you and where to go. So it's a constant cycle. You need to keep marketing.
I don't know if I can be heard or if I can step in here.
Sure.
Okay. He was asking if this is Tim Weimer. I work with Creative Design Works and contract with the T-bid and the Chamber. He's asking about occupancy rates. I can tell you that this last year is probably going to change. It's probably going to raise. But in the past, we averaged about 70% occupancy rate through the summertime and 30% through the winter and lower than that in the off season.
Thank you.
And those are based on, because the T-bids dollars are by room nights and we know the number of rooms, that's a pretty accurate account. So hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa?
So, back to the budget again, is there a comparison of what you're asking for this year compared to what was asked for last year? And then was there any carryover at all or anything remaining?
There is some carryover. Last year's budget, we don't actually ask for these funds. They're what we collect, so we don't get any of them from the city. It's just what we collect. This year, we do have carryover. In the past, we're pretty dead on for the budget. This year, we have carryover because,
Ski touring.
right, all those events did not happen. So we do have carryover this year. We have been finding more and more events are starting to come back, and so some events that we did not plan for in here have already come to us. So it's nice to have that carryover and to have opportunity to jump on things. Not last year, but the year before, we were able to get in Sunset, Better Homes and Gardens, and
Can't remember the third
the
one.
third one, but they were huge national publications and get a fairly large ad because we did have some extra left over. I don't have those numbers right in front of me, what carryover is.
I didn't bring them.
But this year there is some, but typically there is not. It's pretty close to what is budgeted, so.
And this is not city money.
Right.
Yeah, this is something completely separate and different. It's like a pass-through.
It doesn't even go through the
No.
city.
Well,
it's-
but it's like a pass-through. We don't see it in our budget. We don't collect it. We don't spend it. But when T-Bid first brought this up some time ago, the T-Bid group, and we saw the opportunity for somebody who was qualified and in a position to market Red Lodge, and they could do that. And it didn't cost us anything, except a little bit of conversation time.
Dave?
So, yeah, just to add to that, so again, this is basically a self-imposed cost that they put on themselves. And I think the involvement of the council was merely just to provide a level of air cover when you have an organization that's getting money. And people say, well, how do we know you're gonna use the money? What we'll do is we'll have them run their budget past the city council on a yearly basis just to provide that air cover. I do think it's a worthwhile consideration to maybe think of in future years, just showing a past and previous, just some answers. I did have one more question that I didn't get to earlier, which is just and again, understanding that this is your money and you guys are doing a fantastic job and the evidence supports it. And our job's the other way, but I see an agency fee for $10,000. So that doesn't mean anything to me.
So the agency fee, as Tim spoke up, we contract with Creative Design Works.
Okay.
And they build all our ads and they do all of that. So the board decides where the money is spent and the agency builds all the ads. It does all the legwork and brings us all the stats to make sure that we know that we're spending the money wisely so that we can reference that the ads were actually useful.
Any more discussion?
Is the question about our action tonight, is our move just to accept the budget more so than to approve, or what is your understanding? I think it's just a move to accept, correct? As opposed to approve, okay.
That's why it says, please accept this budget.
Right, but on the agenda, it said approve T-bid, and that's what I wanted to clarify, because I have written down move to accept the T-bid budget as presented by Red Lodge Tourist Business Improvement District, which I believe is the accurate action. I just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah.
Okay,
So when you make the motion, will you make sure and say it that way?
that's why I wrote it down.
On top of it.
Yes.
Possible.
Any more discussion? Discussion from the public? Discussion from the public? Well, let's call this one a done one, huh?
Yeah.
Take about a half-hour break, and we can talk with James a little bit about please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call of officers, please.
Carson,
Here.
Fratelli,
Here.
Eaton,
Here.
Lyman,
Here.
Mahan,
Here,
Westwood,
Here,
Whistler.
Minutes of April 13th.
move to approve the minutes of the working session on April 13th as presented.
second?
Discussion. Roll call.
Fratelli,
Here, yes, and here.
All of the above.
Yes.
Lyman,
Here. Yes.
Mahan,
Here, yes.
Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler.
Yes.
Move to approve the minutes of the regular session on April 13th as presented with attachments.
Second?
Discussion. Dave?
Mayor, I have a related tangential question. It doesn't tie directly to the minutes, other than historically, we've had recordings of meetings online. And if I go out and look at the current new website, there's only like 3 meetings dating back to November that have that information available for the public. Do we know why that is, or
So with something with the YouTube and the GoToMeeting and stuff, so hopefully we're getting that kink worked out to where the recording part of it will be back on the
Okay,
website.
so we still have them, it's just the link between the two?
We still have the recordings, and then they are recorded onto a.
All right, thank you. Other than that, I was happy with the minutes, but I know, like I said, a lot of the public likes to go back and look at the meetings for that. Thank you, Mayor.
We were just having technical, I don't know. So hopefully we're getting it figured out with the new website.
Any other discussion on the minutes? Roll call.
Fratelli,
Yes.
Eaton,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Mahan,
Yes.
Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler.
Yes.
Move to approve the minutes of the working session on April the 27th as presented.
Second?
Discussion. Roll call.
Fratelli,
Yes.
Eaton,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Mahan,
Yes,
Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler.
Yes.
thank you, council.
Warrants payable.
Move to approve the warrants payable in the total amount of $438,861.02. The larger ones were Republic Services, $38,823.18. That's up a little bit because of all the branches and such. It took them a lot longer to collect everything. And Northwestern Energy, $13,486.45. That continues to stay down thanks to the change of the lights on Broadway. So I move to approve.
Second.
Thank you.
Any discussion of the warrants payable? Roll call.
Fratelli,
Yes.
Eaton,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Mahan,
Yes,
Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler.
Yes.
thank you.
Officer reports, secretary was trying to get those published for us, but she was having problems today, so,
For the police one.
for the police
Yeah, you
report.
guys got the
Yeah.
Yeah.
resort tax and clerk,
Yeah.
but the police report didn't make it.
Mayor's comments. I'd like to announce that, Police Chief Wells has submitted his letter of resignation. He'll be done by the end of June. We're in the process. We have the ad already formulated for that position, and we'll be posting that on Thursday, and we'll go from there. Once again, we'll get a panel together. Tom, you'll be on that, and we'll have 4 other people on that also, plus Glory.
Yes.
She will help with that, and we'll get started on that process. The city attorney, we already had that panel put together. We received 3 applications from the ad that we ran, and one from Billings, one from that's living here right now, and one from Florida. The panel reviewed those, and we threw out the one from Florida, so we'll be interviewing the one from Billings and the one from here next week. And we'll come up with a decision on who's the best candidate out of those 2. So we'll move forward with that. Let's see. Let's hear about the weed spray day.
You want me to come forward up or just?
You can stand right back there, that'd be
Stand up.
great.
Okay. Well, I'm Pam Schwenz, I'm with Carbon County Weed District, and for years, I've been trying to come up with an idea to meet a proactive approach, or come up with a proactive approach to the city of Red Lodge, to the noxious weed problem that we have here. So in discussing with Danae, who is like my poster child right now, we came up with a plan. So, we were the Weed Away Red Lodge.
Weed Away.
And June 23rd at the fairgrounds, we will have an event, a joint event with the city and the county. Mostly it will be an education. So we're talking about urban stewardship. The term is found online and apparently it's very popular these days. So urban stewardship is just talking about conservation, taking care of your property, whether you have a multi-$1,000 acre farm or ranch, or whether you have a lot in town. That it's very important that we take care of the pristine city that we live in, that you all live in. And it has become quite a problem with the noxious weeds. And a lot of the problem is that most people don't really know that that's what they are, or that there is actually a state law that mandates that you do not allow them to go to seed and propagate on your property. So over the years, we've had various people doing non-compliance. I've actually done some myself, and I just don't feel that's the way to approach it within the city limits. So I spoke with our local representative of the Department of Ag, Eric Clanton in Billings, and for the legalities of doing all of this, because I am not licensed to spray anything within on lawns. I don't have an ornamental turf license. I just have a right-of-way license. So I said, what do we do? So with that, I approached, with his help, and he will be involved with this too. I approached Red Rooster Ranch Spraying, Wright Spraying, Pro Cut, Baldwin, Mike Cross, all of the above, that anybody I can find out to talk about. Let's all come together and let's just do something. Let's do something positive. So what we have planned is a herbicide representative from Helena Chemical, Rory Lewis, who is very young and exciting and passionate about his job, will be there to talk about herbicides, the good, bad, and the ugly, the proper ways to spray your lawn, what to stay away from. And then we will have these professionals there as well to donate herbicide, basically. So if you choose to spray your own lawn, you can bring your container, and for $10, they will fill it. We will talk about the proper ways to spray, PPE, labels will be available if you choose to read that. And then that money, whatever, will go back to the city's Two Parks program. So it's just basically a donation. If you don't want to spray, and there's probably going to be more people that don't want to do that than do, I will have a couple of our crew members there. I believe Danae said she was going to try to get some of her 4-H kids. We're going to get some FFA kids available, and anybody else that wants to volunteer to pull weeds. So we will go to your lawn and only the noxious weeds. We will be pulling noxious weeds, if it's possible, depending on, weather, soils, that sort of thing. And then in my days of walking around here, in fact, last year, I literally walked both subdivisions above the golf course purposely to talk to people. I knocked on doors, I did mapping, and we talked about the invasive plants that are growing in your properties, your lawns, and your flower beds, and all of the empty lots, that they are not pretty wildflowers, that they're actually invasive species. And so, they had no clue. And
So if I didn't hear you from you, that means I did a good job of keeping up, right?
Okay, good. Right. Good. So with that said, there are a lot of noxious weeds growing in flower beds around town. There's a plant called yellow toadflax, which looks just like a snapdragon, and a lot of people feel that it is a wild snapdragon, but it is an invasive plant. The daisies are also very invasive and have a tremendous will to live. They have a rhizomatous root system. They produce a lot of seeds, but they also have I had to look this up, adventitious root, which means you can pull it, lay it on the ground. Under the proper conditions, it will sprout without soil. So it's not something you just throw away or lay on the ground, you get rid of it. So a lot of this will be education.
Don't
And
forget the pretty purple ones.
this is the knapweed. And as you know, I do have a costume that I wore at Earth Day as the daisy. I was the daisy, and then I have a knapweed costume myself. I sing, you know, whatever it takes. Anyway, so we will, if people have noxious weeds in their flower beds, I was given several bags of wildflower seed that was specifically prepared for this event, that I will give you a bag of wildflower seed if you pull your noxious weeds from your flower bed. And then Rory Lewis from Helena Chemical is going to provide burgers and brats, and Danae said she's got a couple people that are going to cook for us. And hopefully we'll be winding up around noon, and this will be an annual event. And so I've got posters and brochures made up that I would like to leave here and have you guys put around town since I'm in Joliet and I'm not here all the time. Yes.
The date
Oh,
again,
June 23rd
23rd?
at the fairgrounds, and I will probably have my big weed education trailer, which is 25 feet long with lots of information. But mostly, I hope people come to just ask questions and learn.
And what time?
It's gonna start at 9, and then, you know, it may go past noon if we're pulling weeds. But, and then, you know, later on in the year, I'm hoping to put something together with tap room and do pull for a pint and go into the parks and our places and pull weeds instead of spraying them. And just, you know, work with the adults more for that. That's just an idea at this point, but that's what I'm planning. So that's what I'm wanting to do, that's proactive. The county can work with the city, and again, Danae has been just amazing, and Courtney we've done great ideas coming together, and it's been really fun to work with them, and it's like, finally, my dreams come true. So, any questions?
I think it's a great idea, Pam. It's something we really need.
I
here.
think so too, and like, you know, we've been beating our heads against the wall, and there's so many new people here that don't understand, that they're possibly bringing invasive plants with them on their vehicles, on their clothes, and the importance of, there's a term called play, clean, go, that you clean your vehicles, your clothing before you go to another area, just so you don't spread what's there somewhere else. You had a question?
Yes, you mentioned you've got the brochures and the flyers. Are you running anything in the Carbon County News?
We will be, yes, and
Okay.
hopefully on the radio, and Danae was going to put it on the event agenda.
Yeah.
So it should be there, which, is your new website up and running? I haven't checked. She did an amazing job of this.
My biggest
Of the
concern is
noxious
just
weeds.
having people show up with their own containers. That's something that requires prior preparation.
Yes, which I believe I say, or at least it is in here. And, you know, if you're living in town, then run home, get it. You know, if you come,
Yeah.
we'll discuss that a little more. It's possible that some of the, now Dan Yates didn't have a problem with this. Luke was a little concerned about liability, so there may be a form to say that, you know, you take them out of the liability. But the herbicide that they use, I don't know anything about, because it's ornamental turf, and I don't do that. So it's basically the same ingredients, it's just a different label. But that's why I have the Department of Ag there, because he will handle all the legalities of that, and that he's going to be building a home in the .com. So he'll be a local here pretty soon anyway, and he's pretty excited about this because he's very proactive as well. So
Very
yeah.
good.
Yeah, I love your slogan, "Weed Away." That's wonderful. When I first moved back home in '92, I had noxious weeds, and it took me 2 years to pull them, to get them all out by the roots, because they just hang right in there. I finally made it, so
Good for you.
pulling them is a good deal.
It can be, now, like the daisies will be like an ongoing thing, just because of the way they reproduce. The root system is so long. There's a lot of Hori alyssum here. It's the little white flower that grows. That also has a taproot, but it produces all year round. So you might pull a big plant and right beside it is a rosette. You don't see it. So it's an ongoing process. with
It's a
Noxious
long
Weeds. That's
process,
why
but
they're-
it's well worth it. Now
why
I
they're
don't
never-
have any yet.
Yeah,
It's wonderful. Thanks so much for doing this.
you're very welcome, and I hope that you guys will all show up and that we can do this again next year. So if I just leave these.
And just confirm, that's a Wednesday, right? June 23rd, it's the
Yeah.
middle of the week.
Middle of the week,
Okay.
yeah, so, that's kind of our work week. And we, in the weed district, we're used to doing this kind of thing. In fact, I'm hoping to do some of the subdivisions, to have spray days on my level, to have our spray truck there, you come fill your container, and we'd rather do that than see them growing, so
Wonderful.
hopefully we'll just keep going.
Thanks a million.
Very good.
Thank you.
Where would you like me to put these?
You can leave them on the counter.
Out
in
there,
there.
okay.
Yeah.
I will. Well, thank you for letting me talk to you guys. That's for sure.
We appreciate it because that's always been a concern, because as you know, tall grass, city problem, noxious weeds, county problem,
Right.
but it's still our problem. We
But
just can't do anything about it,
Exactly.
so.
And that's what urban stewardship is about, is all of our problems. Is, I don't know if any of you've been to western Montana, but it is nothing but noxious weeds. And, we don't want that, because our wildlife will need it, and we love our wildlife. And so that's what we have to do something positive about it.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You guys have a good evening.
I have a reappointment to the library board, Deb Cornick. I would like council approval.
Move to approve Deb Ornick to be reappointed for the library board.
Second that.
Any discussion?
I just have a question. I think that's the one that we had, that was a late submission that we just got an email, or I guess my question is,
Yeah.
was it a late submission?
No, so, it was, so she's been on the board,
Yeah,
she just didn't get it to us by the time packets went out, so.
But it was still before whatever deadline had been published?
We
or-
didn't post this,
Okay,
because it's a reappointment, and we
okay.
don't.
So we're completely good on the up and up. Thank you.
Any other comments? Roll call.
Curtelli,
Yes.
Heaton,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Mahan,
Yes,
Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler.
wonderful.
Thank you. It's the end of mayor's comments. We're going to move to public comments. Once again, if you're on GoToMeeting, turn your camera on and we will call on you then. If you're on the phone, we'll just have to work on that. There is no chat tonight. So when you get called upon, please stand up, give your name and the residence address that you reside, and I will open up public comments. Public comments. One more time, open for public comments. Close public comments. We'll move on to old business. Resolution 3571, resolution adjusting water sewer rates. We'll open up the public hearing. Public hearing is open for resolution 3571. Public hearing is open for resolution 3571. We'll close the public hearing. Move on to resolution 3572, resolution adopting updated.
Point of action, we need to take
Oh, we
an
have to go
action as
action
well.
on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Teresa,
Thank you.
to make that motion.
We need action on that, Teresa.
So a motion to approve resolution 3571.
Second.
Need to read the title to get it in.
I'm getting there. Resolution of intent to annually adjust the City of Red Lodge's water and sewer rates and charges to become effective on July 1st, 2021, and setting a date and time for a public hearing.
Second again.
No, because it needs to be the one that doesn't say,
Resolution of
that's
intent.
resolution of intent.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just take out the.
Yeah.
of
The
intent.
last-
That's the only word, is the intent is missing. I can lend you my hard copy.
A resolution to annually adjust the city of Red Lodge's water and sewer rates and charges to become effective on July 1st, 2021, and setting a date and time for a public hearing. Did I get it right there?
Yeah, you got it right. Actually, we'll just strike the public
know,
hearing from the
Because
title.
that's
Yeah.
one thing that didn't get changed. I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Moved and seconded.
Did it get seconded after it got reread?
Yes, I seconded it
Okay.
twice.
Okay. Discussion.
I move to amend the title to drop and setting a date and time for a public hearing.
Second.
Discussion on the amendment. Vote on the amendment.
Curtelli,
Yes.
Heaton,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Meehan,
Yes.
Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler.
Yes.
Back to the original motion. Discussion on the original motion as amended. Teresa.
So I know that Sam Painter did review this again, and one difference, that's the major difference from the resolution of intent that we've been seeing through working sessions and this one, was just that this would be reviewed again in the next 5 years.
Right.
So that's been added back in, and that's a good thing.
I think it is too.
Yep.
Dave.
I did receive one piece of public comment and feedback, and it had to do with the lovely eye chart that the city sent out and covering it. It's not enough to impact my vote in any way, shape, or form, but just something for us to consider in the future as we're sending things out, that we want to make sure that the information we're sending out is legible and that people aren't going to struggle with it.
So that's a cost thing too, Dave.
No, I understand, and I explain that, just, maybe we can figure out what information, maybe we can narrow it down. It's just that, like I said, that was the only piece of feedback I got, was that it was an eye chart, and so I sat down and explained and read it to it. Wasn't somebody I would have expected it from either, I might add, but.
Any other comments? Comments from the public? Comments from the public? Roll call.
Curtelli,
Yes.
Heaton,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Meehan,
Yes.
Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler.
Yes.
Resolution 3572, resolution adopting updated building-related codes. This is up for action.
Move to approve resolution number 3572, a resolution adopting updated building-related codes for the city of Red Lodge. I guess since I work with you on planning board, that probably makes it mine to introduce.
Second.
Discussion.
I defer to James for an explanation.
Just pointing out that we've got, the new building codes, IBC codes, that's something we have to adopt. Essentially, if we want to keep people's home insurance rates at a lower rate, we have to adopt the state's approval of the IBC code. So it's something that's always been standard operating procedure. We can't deviate from those codes. What the state approves is what we approve, and we have to keep it that simple.
Just to clarify, I think I heard health insurance, but I think you meant home insurance.
Home insurance, that should help.
I don't know.
No. Okay. Any discussion? Discussion from the public? Discussion from the public? Roll call.
Curtelli,
Yes.
Heaton,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Meehan,
Yes.
Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler.
Yes.
Resolution 3573, resolution confirming rates and charges for stormwater system up for action. Teresa?
You mean for,
Do you want to hand that to her so she can read the
You
motion?
want,
no, I have it here.
Oh, okay.
let's make a motion, then we can discuss it.
Motion to, approve resolution
of the City of Red Lodge, Montana, confirming the basis on which stormwater system charges are determined and charged, and confirming rates and charges.
Second.
Discussion. Want to give us a quick overview?
This is something that had gone through a resolution of intent and hearing the previous year during the fall, and it had just not been forwarded onto the final resolution for approval. This is providing the sanitary sewer system with the funds that it needs to maintain itself in large part.
Stormwater,
Sorry? Stormwater, sewer, sorry. Stormwater. And then it has been advertised, hearings have been had previously. This is just something that was rewoken.
Yeah, it was just a step that was missed back. We did all of it before.
Discussion at the table. Discussion from the public. Discussion from the public. Roll call.
Curtelli.
Yes.
Heaton.
Yes.
Lyman.
Yes,
Mahan.
Yes.
Westwood.
Yes.
Whistler.
Yes.
New business. Approve the T-bid budget.
Oh, great, now I lost it.
Move to approve the T-bid budget as presented.
I think Dave brought up I should say accept the T.
Oh, that's right, yes.
Oh, okay.
To accept the T-bid budget as presented.
Second.
You're absolutely right, Tom.
Discussion.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Dave.
Just from a public standpoint, we did have a pretty significant discussion on this during the working meeting, for those who may not have been there. The short version of this is a fund that is a voluntary, I don't know that I quite want to call it tax because it isn't, but it's a self-imposed assessment fee, thank you, put on specifically by the businesses that rent beds for a living. And those funds are then used by the group to help increase bed use in the city. And so it's their own organization, it's their own budget, and it's when they established it, one of the safety nets and air covers they provided was just to have the city council review and accept their budget on a year-to-year basis. So there was some discussion there, and anybody who's interested will be able to soon be able to go back and review the video recordings. But for myself, I will speak, I was perfectly happy with all the questions that were asked and how they were answered.
Any other comment? Comment from the public? Comment from the public? Roll call.
Curtelli.
Yes.
Heaton.
Yes.
Lyman.
Yes,
Mahan.
Yes.
Westwood.
Yes.
Whistler.
Use of city-owned land permit, Brad Lodge Farmers Market. I'll take a motion.
Move to approve the use of city-owned property by the farmer's market as presented.
second that.
Kelly, you want to give us a quick overview?
Yes, so, again, during the council working session, we had a good conversation about this. This group, the Red Lodge Farmers Market, has applied to use the property at the Lions Park for their Friday farmers market. And they are, in lieu of the $100 per day fee, they are proposing to provide in-kind services, specifically the pruning of city trees along Broadway, cleaning of the flower areas near the roundabout, and checking on public bathrooms during the event. One point that came up during the discussion in the working session was that they haven't given their $500 deposit. And there was some discussion about, have we collected that in the past? Has anyone else been given an exemption? And James and I did some looking through some files, and we haven't given any other group the exemption to not pay the $500 deposit. And so I would like to propose that we do ask them to pay the deposit, and that, so that we don't set a precedent for allowing groups to not pay the deposit. If, you know, a deposit is only, a check is only cashed if there's a need for the deposit, if any damage has been done. I think we all agree that this is a great group and that they provide a wonderful service for us in the summer in this community, and that we're all, you know, 99% sure nothing terrible is going to happen, that there's not going to be damage to the park. It's simply just a deposit that then will be returned to them at the end. So that's kind of a short synopsis of the discussion.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we want to make an amendment then?
I will
Okay.
move that we approve it as presented based on, conditionally based on providing of a deposit, but I would also like to add conditionally based on proof of insurance, because I did not see a proof of insurance
I
here.
have it. The
Okay,
insurance has
so
been-
we
yeah.
do have that
We
now.
have
All right,
it, yeah.
so only based on, approve this, provisionally based on a deposit as is standard.
So we do have a motion. Are you making that in
Yeah,
the way of an amendment?
Amendment to, yeah, that this is approved conditionally on provision of a deposit. Check.
I second that.
Okay.
Pete looks like he has a question.
I'll bring it up during discussion of the amendment.
Okay, so we have an amendment on the table and it's been seconded, up for discussion.
I think we should allow these folks in lieu of cash to present a letter of credit so that they don't have to give us the money actually. Just prove to us it's available.
Second.
So, can I just,
Yeah, let's just clarify that.
so with the deposit, they just bring us a check, we don't deposit it, we hold it. And at the end of the event, if everything is good, they get the check back. The money never goes through the.
Then that suffices my question.
So,
And I forgot to mention that. I did ask
Yeah.
Wendy that, and she stated that was the case.
Any
No,
other
we just
discussion
hold
at the table on the amendment?
So just to clarify, what we'll do is we'll accept a check as a letter of credit that basically says they will pay if needed.
Discussion from the public.
Hi, this is Chris Mulaney and Sammy. Thanks for, getting our permit through. We do think it's a great event for the city. We did have an event. I heard somebody in the working session say they didn't have farmers market last year, but we did have farmers market. I think we were one of the few events that did happen in Red Lodge. We're fine with the deposit, but we have a question on exactly how that's going to work, because we're there every week and then everybody else uses the park the rest of the week. So is somebody from the city going to come every Friday and sign off on that, no damage has been done during those few hours? It's like, how do you guys want to work that? We paid for a hand washing station at the gazebo last year out of our small little budget. And it was vandalized one of the weekends during another event. So, I think that would be our big question is, how do you guys prove that we left it in good condition at 6 o'clock on Friday and something happens on Saturday? Got any ideas?
I defer to James. What is our standard process?
Well, it is held at a time that's difficult for us to confirm things. I think, there's probably somebody from the city that'll be by there over the weekend. I do think there's possibility that there could be damage and there's no evidence of how it was done. Now, if we could see that, say there was a broken sprinkler line, for example, and we know there was tents in the area, there was probably a stake that went through the ground. And I think in a case like that, I would think we'd be able to show that it had to have been from the farmer's market, but other things might be difficult to prove. I would agree with that.
I think the question I hear is, would it be somebody under the direction of your department, or would it be somebody from Public Works who just makes a swing pass through and says, it looks good to me?
I mean, I can't really make the promise that I can do that every Friday evening. I'll be backpacking probably, I won't be in town for half of Friday evenings this summer.
You know, being where, when they're holding it, it starts at 3, gets done with,
At 6, is it?
you know, it's, you know, everybody's pretty well gone. I guess it would just be, Chris, it would just be a matter of, if we did end up with, I think we're more concerned about the sprinkler line than anything else, because I mean, you know, what you're doing there isn't all that destructive. So, you know, I guess that, I mean, when the sprinklers came on Monday morning and we have a geyser, you know, over in that area, then it'd probably be a question.
But how do you know somebody didn't have a picnic on Saturday and put up a tent?
And
Because
we've never known until the sprinkler
Yeah,
come back.
we don't allow anybody to use any stakes, and so we're confident that we're good on that part. But
Okay,
that's
good.
all I'm going to say about the deposit thing, is that you guys can make us write a check, but then we're on the hook because you're not monitoring it each week.
I will respect your right to push back and say, how can you prove that there was damage that was caused by us? And I think at that point, there would be an evaluation by staff, and they would just look at it. And so I think that conversation could happen if it needed to come up. I see Jim raising his hand.
I'd say that, I've been at City 20, but we've never had to go clean up or fix anything that I'm aware of ever from farmers market.
Yeah.
And I know they use weights rather than stakes specifically because of requests in the sprinkler systems. I've been down there when the hailstorms blow through, and there's 5 of us parked on the legs of one of those things to keep it from blowing away.
And we're always glad that you're one of them.
You calling me fat?
I'll bring a check by, and, you know, thanks a lot. And we'll, you know, I think one of the things we'll do is we'll take pictures every Friday, and because we did have that vandalism, you know, with our $250 water station. So
I think that sounds like a prudent and move on your part.
Yep.
I would do that same thing.
all right, well, thanks for getting the permit through this session, and we'll see you all at the farmers market on June 24th.
We're about to do that.
Good. All right. Thank you. Any
All right,
other
thanks.
discussion? Any more public discussion on the farmer's market? We're talking about the amendment right now.
No, oh, yeah, it is. We didn't approve the amendment yet either, did
No,
we?
we have not. Let's have a roll call on the amendment.
Kelly,
Yes.
Heaton,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Mahan,
No,
Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler.
Yes.
Okay. Let's move back to the original motion with the amendment. Any discussion? Discussion from the public. Discussion from the public. Roll call.
Kelly,
Yes.
Heaton,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Mahan,
yes,
Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler.
Thank you. Correspondence, I believe you all saw the correspondence from Sam Painter on the questions that we had. I still need to talk to him more about the ordinance. I haven't had time to get back and talk to him in person. Seemed like we were losing some meanings when emailing back and forth, and so it's going to be, I need to get a phone call with him, and we'll get his opinion on that. Yes,
you didn't answer that one question.
no, he really didn't.
Didn't answer
No.
that.
And Mayor, I have a question on the ordinance, because we did not receive a copy of the ordinance. Is that an ordinance that originated from council, or which ordinance was it we relayed on to him?
That was the ordinance that came in from Kristen Coxwell.
Okay. I know that there has been some additional work done on that, and including response, or including indirect response to how the formatting and stuff was. So I would move that, or I would like to propose that what we will do is we will get that updated version to the mayor. I think it's best that that stuff originate from council just as a request to cover you. And I think we can get that done ASAP so that you have that for review and have time to do it, and then we can have it as a work item at the next work meeting. Is that okay with you to get you that updated version? We'll submit
I
that
need
to
the
you.
updated version, and then I'll get with Sam on that. Well, I can't guarantee that it's gonna be at the work session, but we'll move forward. Yes, Teresa.
Mayor, it sounds like what I'm interpreting from his response, that he wants to see the original one marked up with basically the proposed one right on top of it, so that he could read through and stare and compare on one document, right? So that's what we need to do to.
And we'll have that in the mayor's box tomorrow.
That was my understanding too.
Yeah.
Like I said, it seemed like we were losing some dialogue. and we were
Yeah,
Just emailing, so.
thank you.
Yes.
I also had some question on his response regarding the presence of council members. Because he talked about that it was clear that we currently needed to have, that the provision is specific to Red Lodge about the actual location. And the only place we have that is in our rules of procedure. And so I guess I would look to him for a clarification, because he said the ordinance amendment process. But my understanding is there's one of two things. If it's just the rules of procedure that cause that restriction, then we as a council can fix that with a resolution, which is how it was imposed. Or do we still need to follow up and go to the voters to get are our hands bound until such time as the charter gets changed? And so as I read through his response, I just wasn't clear, because he said change it through the ordinance amendment process, and one of them was a resolution, and one of them is actually have to go to the voters. And so I would like to have a clear understanding. If the only limitation is from the resolution that was passed, then we can move forward and modify that, or at least have a discussion about what we want to do forward with it.
And I know what you're saying, and my understanding was, when I read it, was stating the location as City Hall. And that's the way that I read that. And in order to change it, having 4 people present at City Hall would have to change that, the charter.
Okay, thank you.
So,
But that answered a lot of questions anyway. So we need to have 4 people present at City Hall.
With the exception of the AG.
Once the AG opinion goes away.
Right.
Right. The AG opinion covers, just lets it do all remotely. The only thing we need to do is when we are voting, or even when we take roll call, we need to make sure that you are in the city limits.
But
that's not clear.
No, I read it that you just have to be within the city of Red Lodge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
not at City Hall.
Not in the building, not in this building.
Yeah, not at
Right.
City.
But that is a byproduct. I guess my question is that a byproduct of the resolution we passed, and therefore we can change that? So that was the city procedures. That was something that snuck into city procedures the week we passed it. And I voted, as did everybody here, we voted for it without maybe necessarily realizing what those impacts were. And so I would like additional clarification that just says, if we change the resolution while the AG's letter is still in effect, is it no longer necessary that they be within city limits? I think there's still an ongoing discussion about whether we would be able to get more people to run for city offices if we opened up the charter. And I agree that we have to change the charter in order to do that, because that's where that limit is given. But the AG gave us certain restrictions, and then we imposed additional restriction on ourselves that was kind of paring down what the AG gave us.
Right.
Is that in line with your understanding as well?
It is.
Okay.
And I can get a clarification on that, whether we have to be in the city limits right now under the AG opinion.
And my guess is, based on conversation, if you learn from the city attorney that the must be within the Red Lodge is only a result of our resolution, that we'd probably like to have that on the work meeting for discussion to see if we want to change that phrase.
I think you could change that, but we still need to do something with the charter.
Yeah, that, because as soon as the charter comes in, as soon as the AG goes away, we're back to the charter, which locks us down.
Right. Exactly.
And that's in line with Dan's guidance as well.
Yeah.
And he makes it very clear, ask the remote members to confirm they are attending from a remote location that is within the city of Red Lodge.
Correct.
Makes it very
The-
clear.
The question was, is that requirement because of the resolution that we passed, which means we can change it and then that is no longer necessary? And that would have addressed Tom's situation.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks for giving me more to do.
Anytime. Hey, you know, you've got 200 and how many days?
34.
234 days. But who's counting?
I think you are too. All right. I'd like to move to number 11 on the list.
Is there any other correspondence?
There was one other
Adjourn,
one.
move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
I'll say, I don't even know that it takes a second, but I'll go with it.
We'll take it. All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.